Women, and give me a big amen if you agree with this, okay? Women are the most beautiful creatures on the planet. Amen! Hallelujah! This is good news. No one I have ever known has ever been fired from work because they just couldn't stop looking at pictures of peacocks on the internet. You know, just the feathers are beautiful. I can't help myself. There is something captivating about a woman and about a woman's body. There's something beautiful about it. There is today a brutal assault on the dignity of women. I don't know you, and I don't know where you're at. I know from speaking to some of you that you have struggled with pornography for a long time. I know that from speaking to some of you, you have never struggled with pornography. You have never struggled with masturbation. What I'm going to do today is share my story. And after doing that, I want to kind of give us some steps on how to overcome this, because while all of us might not struggle with pornography, I think a lot of us have. And while not all of us struggle with masturbation, I think a lot of us have and do. Okay? And while maybe some of us don't struggle with either, I think to some degree we all struggle with lust, which is the twisting of love. So brothers, we are all in this together. There is a battle and we are all comrades. We are all in this together. I've read a statistic recently that said men who get married live for about 10 years longer. Yeah. And apparently, go me and Joe and Garth and Ben. And I think they said the reason is because the wife will force the man to go to the doctor when something's the problem. It seems that as guys, we don't naturally like asking for help, right? And I think God can use our stubborn wills, but he needs to mold us first. But one thing I will say at the beginning of this talk is if you are not willing to be humble, okay? If you are not willing to accept that there is a problem, this talk is over for you. You can go. Really. Like, you can go and do whatever you want. But if you are not willing to face that something needs to change and that you need to change, that I need to change, this talk is done. Okay? So my story begins. I am one of 3 children, the eldest. Emma's the youngest. My brother Thomas is the middle child. And one day, my brother and I were at the back of my grandfather's house. We call him Pop's house. And we were playing Dirt Ronnie Wars. Does anyone know what Dirt Ronnies are, apart from... Okay, in Australia, Joe and I don't experience a lot of snow, so we have to use what we have. So basically, you kind of pick up a bunch of dirt and you compact it as hard as you can and you throw it at the other person, like you peg it, right? And the harder you pack it, the better, because the harder it'll hit them. And so one day, my brother and I were out the back of my pop's house and we're just pegging these dirt ronnies at each other. And Nan had this big telephone tower, or this big, TV tower, and I'm climbing up the top of it. I don't know why Mum never yelled at me, but I never died, so that was good. But one day I stumbled into my pop's shed, and I loved my pop's shed because it had lots of kind of rusty bolts and nails and cool stuff, and like little metal boxes. You know, it was such a mystery to me. I loved it. And one day, I'm walking in there and I open up this big chest, and I see a centerfold of a pornographic picture of this woman naked, and I was completely captivated by it. This thing was beautiful. I mean, this woman was beautiful. And yet, I knew I shouldn't be looking at it. Something in me just knew that this wasn't right. About 7 or 8. I put it back and I continued to play. And every time I would come over to my grandparents' house, I would seek out that picture and other pictures that I found, and I would just look at them. I think I began masturbating around the age of 9. It's like before my body had even developed, I was masturbating. So this continued, and by about the age of probably 11 or 12, me and my best friend would go into newspaper stores and steal magazines, right? We would just like walk in there, pretend we're looking at the car magazines, slip them down the front, and kind of peg it outside. And me and my mate collected quite a stash, and I kept mine under the bottom drawer. But I kept it under the bottom drawer and shut it. And I thought that this was an impenetrable fortress, quite frankly. I mean, it was amazing. It was like, the cupboard in The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Who would have known, And so one day my dad comes home with this do-it-yourself carpet cleaning kit. Yeah, you know where this is going. So everything had to be lifted off the ground, right? So I'm just outside, in our rumpus room, just hanging out. My dad comes out. He looks at me. And And he says, nice collection of Playboy and Penthouses you got there, Matt. Just don't let your mother find out. Now, God bless my father, hey? He was trying. Maybe I think what he was doing was trying to be nice, trying to be cool. But what he did was reaffirm the lie that I had been believing, and that was that men looked at porn and that this was an okay thing. So by the age of 13, I was hooked on pornography. Okay? I had a grandfather that hid porn in his shed. I had a grade 8 teacher that told us that masturbation was healthy on a grade 8 camp, 13. I had my father who congratulated me for finding my stash of pornography. And if that's not enough, I had my best friend's mum who after dinner and after playing games on the Sega would take us out and rent us pornographic films at the age of 13. And then so after dinner, just sit here and just watch them. And I look back now and I realize how the enemy has tried to take me out. And you need to look back into your life and see how the enemy has tried to take you out. Because what we often do is we forget that there's a battle going on, right? I mean, we read the stories of Padre Pio. I was reading this the other day. Apparently, several exotic dancers who were naked started doing the most amazing, kind of dances for him, right? And we're like, of course it was the devil. And so Padre Pio knew it was the devil too. We read about Saint Benedict. He was on Mount Subiaco, and it says the devil tempted him to go back into town and to find that woman that had captivated him. Well, of course it was the devil, right? Francis threw himself into thorns. Of course it was the devil. And then we look at our life, and we're like, it's just me. Like I'm messed up, or God doesn't love me enough to kind of keep me from this stuff. It's a battle. Internet came in. I was probably masturbating every day, or once a day, right? I thought I needed to masturbate like I needed 3 meals a day, right? At this stage, my first girlfriend, she was unfortunate enough to date me because me and my mate were like, well, this is great. We've experienced this on film, now we want to live this stuff out for real. So I was on a mission. I need to experience this stuff. So my first girlfriend, while there were some feelings of genuine love, I was not a man yet at all, and I was trained in weakness, and lost my virginity to her. No one had ever told me that pornography was wrong. Ever. My granddad seemed to think it was okay. Dad congratulated me. My best friends did it. My best friend's mum said it was okay. Our teacher said it was okay. So this notion that, people are prudes and they just kind of push that on us, and, that's rubbish. But the further I sunk into my addiction, the more defensive I got. You know what I mean? Making excuses. Like, hey, boys will be boys. I'm just appreciating the beauty of womanhood, Like maybe some people don't do it because they don't like women enough. Or, sex is natural. I just tell myself whatever I could, right? To convince myself that this was an okay thing. When I was 17 years old, though, my mum sent me to World Youth Day in Rome. And I wanted to go because it was Rome, right? Like, I wasn't really into my faith at all. I'd stopped going to Mass. I considered myself an atheist. But I went, and it was there that I accepted salvation. It was there I came to know Jesus Christ. And it was the most profound, most beautiful experience of my entire life. I don't know if you know anyone that has a conversion and then goes crazy, like kind of crazy with love. Joe, do you remember? I went right. We had this face painting day at school, and did you remember this? Yeah. I sat down, I'm like, can you just write Jesus across my face in gold? She's like, Jesus, just across my face. Thanks, great. I would go to the same parties I was at with my Bible, just to tell them, because I figured they didn't know. And I figured all that needs to happen is they need to be told about this. Whenever we'd go out clubbing, I would wear my scapular. Like, I just pull it down the back and I'd let it hang out. And Jake, my best mate, is like, you going out like that? Yep. All right. We'd be out in Sydney and I'd have no shoes. And Jake's like, where's your shoes? I'm like, I gave them to this poor guy. He needed them. I just went crazy with love for Jesus. And it's beautiful when you come to know him in that way. But that also posed a problem. Because pornography and Jesus don't really go together. They don't go together at all. It's sort of like, it's kind of like chewing gum and chips. Do you ever do that? You're chewing a piece of gum and someone offers you some chips and they look good and you're like, well, sure, okay. I've got the gum.